YNW Melly is going through a tough time. He's been in jail for almost 6 years, still fighting a double murder case that just won't go away. And now, as his bond hearing gets serious, an old clip of him talking about his alter ego Melvin is going viral.
When the night hits, he really come in his life. Melvin is just like, once you play with Melly to a certain extent, Melvin just don't like that. Melvin on your ass.
It might sound like YNW Melly just being himself, but fans think he revealed more than he meant to. The clip of him talking about his alter ego, Melvin, is going viral again, and people are now watching it closely, frame by frame. Some believe this could completely change how the case is seen. The documentary that could change everything. Any talk about this trial wouldn't be complete without mentioning how Melly has been acting in court recently. On the third day of the trial, people started noticing strange behavior. He was seen sitting with his hands folded, eyes closed, and mumbling what looked like a prayer. And he opened his eyes and blew kisses to the audience. One person who noticed was Juvie's mother, Leandra Phillips. She didn't like what she saw. In an interview with NBC Miami, she said, "You did it a couple times, that wasn't his first time. Walked out because I don't know what you're praying for. You're sitting there like you have no remorse. Every time I walk in, you're smiling. This isn't the time for that. This is serious. This case is sad." Melly was also seen laughing and joking with his lawyer more than once. In another strange moment, a video shows him getting agitated while looking at someone in the audience and repeating the same words over and over. Naturally, this sparked mixed reactions online. Some people say Melly doesn't seem to care that he's facing the death penalty. Others think he's just used to being in jail. He's been locked up since early 2019 after all. Things get even more confusing. On the first day of the trial, Melly was seen wiping away tears when footage of his two friends was shown in court. No matter how he's acting, Melly knows the evidence is stacking up. Testimonies from medical examiners and a sergeant back up the original report that Melly shot both men. And now, with the death penalty on the table, things are even more intense. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis passed a law where the jury doesn't have to fully agree to recommend the death sentence. Only 8 out of 12 jurors need to say yes. If Melly is found guilty, he could be one of the first people sentenced to death under this new rule. That's why the jurors' visit to the crime scene is going to be a huge part of how they decide what really happened. Take a second and think about all the shocking details that have come out in court so far. First off, Melly wasn't in the car with Bortlen when he drove Sack Chaser and Juvie to the hospital, but phone records show that all 4 of them were together just 15 minutes before that. That's already suspicious. It gets deeper. Prosecutors claim Melly called Fredo Bang to come pick him up afterward. Then came Felicia Holmes' testimony, which may have given Melly's team a powerful advantage. Her statements allowed his lawyers to file for a mistrial. So even if Melly is found guilty, he could appeal. And there's a real chance that the Florida Supreme Court might actually grant that mistrial, giving him another shot to prove his innocence. We also found out that Melly had issues with Sack Chaser a couple of months before the shooting. In fact, a conversation between Melly and his mother revealed him asking for a .40 caliber gun, the same type used to kill Sack Chaser and Juvie. Now the prosecution has been struggling to prove a motive. They even brought in Detective Danny Polo, trying to argue it was a gang-related killing. But here's the thing. In this case, they don't need a motive to convict. They do have is strong testimony from 2 medical examiners and Sergeant Williams, all lining up with the forensic evidence reported back in early 2019. But there's still one major hole in the case. They've never found the murder weapon. And without it, the prosecution can't lock in an airtight case. These are all major details revealed in court over the past few weeks. But what happened outside of court might be just as important. Let's talk about 2 big events. The first has to do with what YNW Bortlen's been up to. Back in April 2020, Melly caught COVID-19 and asked the judge to let him serve his time on house arrest. Judge said no, but just a month later, Bortlen, who's facing 2 counts of accessory after the fact and murder charges, was granted house arrest. That raised a lot of eyebrows. In a statement, Bortlen's lawyer said his client got house arrest, but Melly would stay behind bars. And that's exactly what happened. While Melly stayed in prison, Bortlen's been living free. Then in January 2023, it was reported that Bortlen told law enforcement he was just the driver. It's now set to go on trial in October. That gives prosecutors plenty of time to keep building their case against Melly, which, if it works, might help Bortlen's own defense. The bottom line, case is far from over, and there are still a lot of twists and turns to come. It's believed there was only one person with one gun who shot both Sack Chaser and Juvie, and who knows what other surprises could come out before Bortlen's trial in October. This situation also creates a really interesting dynamic between Melly and Bortlen. What if Melly's legal team decides to shift some of the blame onto Bortlen? What if Bortlen makes a deal with the prosecutors that throws Melly under the bus? Let's be real. These two could go as far as staging a fake drive-by shooting to cover up what happened. Then it's clear they'll do whatever it takes to save themselves. All bets are off. There's also a good chance Melly feels bitter toward Bortlen. Melly's time in jail hasn't been easy at all. He's talked about losing phone privileges over small rule breaks, and even said he's feared for his life behind bars. In one Instagram post, he claimed that deputies, lieutenants, and sergeants threatened him, saying they'd hide him from the outside world and beat him up daily. He said they warned him not to tell his lawyers, or they'd lie and say he attacked them first. Named Sergeant Anthony Kidd and Lieutenant Jean Baptiste specifically, saying he's been cut off from the world and feels like the next step might be getting beaten half to death. Something he says happens to other inmates all time at the Broward County Jail. So yeah, on the surface, it really looks like Melly has every reason to be upset, especially since Bortland has had it way easier these past few years. It's going to be interesting to see how things unfold between them in court. Now, let's talk about another major part of this story, the wrongful death lawsuit. Back in October 2020, the families of Sack Chaser and Juvie filed a lawsuit against both Melly and Bortland. According to the case, the four of them were expecting to make a lot of money together, but they couldn't agree on how to split it up. Money disagreements are one of the oldest motives in the book. One of the lawyers even said that with fewer people around to split the profits, the remaining ones would naturally get more. Juvie's dad supported this claim. He said the argument started when they were discussing a deal to sell the YNW brand for marketing and licensing. He and Sack Chaser were each supposed to get $200,000, while Juvie would have gotten $100,000 from the $500,000 deal. Juvie's father is absolutely convinced Melly is the one responsible for his son's death.
Day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son's death on October 26th when I first heard the story. Because his explanation, when I finally talked to him in Portland on FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they were the best spirits. They never came to town, never came to my son's funeral.
If these claims are actually true and a deal really was on the table, then it completely changes how we see the relationship between these four men. They weren't just childhood friends hanging out. They were business partners, and they were having a serious disagreement about money and control over their brand. But here's the thing, for now, this wrongful death lawsuit hasn't played any role in the trial that's happening right now. The prosecution is still trying to piece together the key events from that night in October 2018, from the moment the four men left the recording studio to when Bortland showed up at the hospital with the bodies of Juvie and Sack Chaser. In court, expert witnesses and evidence have painted a disturbing picture. It suggests that Melly might be a cold-blooded killer who murdered two of his closest friends over a money dispute. Not long after Juvie and Sack Chaser were killed, a IECR documentary on Melly came out. It highlighted the close bond he shared with them. He even called Juvie his day one and said, "We got the same brain. Me and all my brothers had the same dream growing up." But somewhere along the way, did Melly decide his dream mattered more than theirs? And if so, could that really be enough to make him take their lives? There's still a lot we don't know, and the rest of this trial will likely bring out even more shocking information about YNW Melly. For now, the outcome is still completely up in the air.
Breaking the case of a double murder in Miramar.
Two people now behind bars, including a South Florida rapper who actually sings a popular song about murder.
Jamal Maurice Demons, alias YNW Melly, was charged with the murder of his two best friends, Anthony Williams, alias YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas, alias YNW Juvie. The day he turned himself in on February 13th, Miramar police tweeted, "Jamal, Demons aka YNW Melly and Cortland Henry, have been arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr., were killed on October 26, 2018. The investigation, supported by forensic evidence, has concluded that Demons shot and killed Williams and Thomas Jr., and that Demons and Henry staged the crime scene to resemble a drive-by shooting. Melly has had to wait for his trial for about 4 years while in jail, and now as the case draws to a conclusion, the prosecution has revealed a lot of shocking information that puts Melly in a bad light and makes him look guilty. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was found on Melly's Instagram account, while rappers are known to snitch. From time to time, Melly may have just ended his life with a single Instagram DM. During the prosecution's opening statements, they revealed that they had an incriminating Instagram text that Melly had sent to fellow rapper Peasy Gambino. It turns out that Peasy had reached out to Melly the morning the shooting happened to confirm whether the YNW rapper was okay.
One individual specifically sends out, and I want to quote the message exactly that you will hear. "Yo, homie, you good?"
IW Melly's reply was chilling and may prove crucial in the outcome of the case. The reply makes the rapper look guilty, as he may have snitched on himself and confessed to the murder. The prosecutor revealed that the rapper replied to the DM saying, "I did that." Did this really prove that Melly had killed his two best friends, who he had grown up with? It is important to remember that Melly is facing the death penalty, so the prosecution has to prove without reasonable doubt that the rapper actually confessed to the murders in the Instagram text. First problem that arises is the context in which the text message was sent. It is possible that the rappers were talking about anything. However, the prosecution shot this idea down by arguing that the only context that the message could have been sent was regarding the shooting that had happened earlier. This is because Melly had been flooded with messages that morning, and all had a similar theme. They were inquiring about the tragic incident.
The context around the messages matters. So in the context of this message, this individual is reaching out, asking if Mr. Dennis is good, after he's been tagged in multiple social media posts about this shooting.
According to the prosecutor, since everyone in Melly's DMs was asking him about the alleged drive-by, then that would have been the only thing he was responding to, while the defense had a well-crafted response to the text. One detail in the text may have saved Melly's life. As it turns out, the autocorrect feature may be Melly's saving grace according to the rapper's defense. The spelling of the word that was not consistent with what the rapper used in other instances when he texted.
Will you tell the jury how he spells that? D-A-T.
According to Melly's defense attorney, all the text messages that the prosecution had brought up in the trial showed that Melly spelled the word that as D-A-T.
So when Melly spells the word that, you want me to go through all 19 pages? That every time, he does not spell it T-H-A-T, but D-A-T.
Did this mean that someone else was using Melly's phone? Was it even his phone? Or did his friends also use the phone? More details were revealed in trying to answer this question. The prosecution proved that the phone in question was actually Melly's. Apparently, detectives found photos of a Western Union receipt with Melly's name and phone number, which tied the phone number to Melly's name.
The print down at the bottom of this Western Union.
It says Janelle DeMons, 604 9th Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida, 32962, USA, phone number 772-713-907.
However, one of Melly's friends, Adrian Davis, who was present with the group at the studio, took to the stand and gave a shocking revelation. Turns out that in the morning, after they received news that their friends had been shot and killed, they all rushed to their phones. However, Melly could not find his phone.
Did anyone get on their phone?
Yeah.
Did anyone have any problem locating their phone?
Yes.
Who was that?
Janelle.
This opened a whole can of worms. Where was Melly's phone this whole time? And if he did not have his phone at the time the incriminating text was sent, then who did, however? While on the stand, Davis revealed that multiple people often used Melly's phone. In fact, the whole crew used each other's phones from time to time.
We all use this phone sometimes. We all use each other's phones.
So, where was Melly's phone that morning? The prosecution believes they've answered that question. According to them, detectives used cell phone data to track Melly's location. First, they confirmed that the rapper had his phone with him when leaving the studio. CCTV footage shows Melly walking out of the building with his phone in hand. Melly and his crew left in two separate cars. Police used the phones from those cars to track their locations. The phones in the red Mitsubishi showed it headed towards Sunset Lakes, while the phones in the gray Jeep took a different route. Prove the phone data was accurate. The prosecution pointed out that Melly and Sack Chaser had the same phone model and were on the same phone plan, using the same service and towers. So, if the data was correct, both phones should have shown a similar travel path. Using this data, detectives tracked the Jeep's movement. It went up to Pines Boulevard, then west toward the edge of the Everglades. The prosecution said this was a deserted area. The Jeep continued south and turned onto Pembroke Road. This is where things took a dark turn. Pembroke Road ends at a crash facility. There are no homes, no streetlights, no people, and no cameras in that area, making it an ideal location to commit a crime in secret. The prosecution also said that no other cell phones were detected in the area at that time, meaning the four men were alone that night. And with that, the state plans to show.
The state intends to show the evidence that the phone was there at the murder scene, and there were no other phones there. There is no one else out there at 4 in the morning.
Later, the prosecution revealed even more damaging evidence. Melly made a FaceTime call to his then-girlfriend, Mariah Hamilton. Mariah's mother was at the house when the call came through. Mariah screamed and woke her mother, who came to see what was happening. After the FaceTime call at 4:42 a.m., Melly sent a pin location to Frederick Given, also known as Fredo Bang, a rapper from Louisiana. So who's telling the truth? Did Melly's friend lie under oath, or was the cell phone tower data wrong? Adrian Davis had a lot to say while on the stand about that morning when they left the studio. According to his testimony, Melly was with them at the house. Surveillance footage showed Melly getting into the gray Jeep. Davis, however, left in the red Mitsubishi. If the Jeep took a detour all the way to Pembroke Road, while the Mitsubishi went to Sunset Lakes, and how did Melly end up at his house in Sunset Lakes with the people in the Mitsubishi? According to Davis, their vehicle stopped along the way, and Melly switched cars, hopping into the Mitsubishi.
Did there come a time that you were woken up before you got to the house?
Yes.
What happened?
We pulled over, and that's when Melly got in the car with us.
However, Davis said he was asleep and didn't remember exactly where they stopped. But one thing he was sure of, when they got to the house, Melly was with them. According to Davis, Melly was there when they heard the news about the shooting and the deaths of their friends. While Melly seemed to have an alibi, another crew member who was also there that day took the stand to testify. Trayvon Glass, YNW Juvie's producer. At first, the defense didn't want Trayvon to testify because he had been avoiding the police for the past 4 years and was known to heavily use marijuana. Also, Trayvon was out on bail, and it seemed like he was forced to testify. But what Trayvon said on the stand could seriously damage Melly's alibi. According to Trayvon's testimony, when they arrived at Melly's house in the red Jeep, same people who got into the car at the studio were the ones present at the house.
When we got to the house gate at Melly's house, who was inside your vehicle, the red Mitsubishi?
Same people who seen it in the car.
According to Trayvon, Melly was not with them at the house, and they were not together when the news about the alleged drive-by shooting came in. Two people who were in the red Mitsubishi gave conflicting testimonies while on the stand. So, who was lying under oath? Looks like the jury will have a tough job deciding with all this evidence. Even though it seemed like Melly had accidentally snitched on himself in an Instagram message, the defense might have been able to create doubt and change the jury's opinion. Still, a lot of information points to Melly being at the crime scene, especially his cell phone data. Besides the phone data, many other people connected to the case may have used social media to suggest Melly had a role in the murders, or at least is involved in the legal fight. Detention, defense, and what's next. Jamal Maurice Demons, aka YNW Melly, isn't new to criminal trouble. Growing up, Melly joined the Bloods gang at a young age. Raised by his mom without a father figure, his early life led him into crime. When he was just 16, Melly was arrested for shooting at a group of students near Vero Beach High School. He was convicted of aggravated battery, discharging a firearm in public, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. He spent several months in jail and was later released on probation. The next year, he was arrested again for violating probation and stayed in jail until March 2018. 2 months after his release, Melly was arrested in Fort Myers for possession of weed, drug paraphernalia, weapons, and ammunition. He bonded out. In January 2019, he was arrested again for possession of weed. The next month, Melly was arrested on charges that would change his life for the next 4 years.
2 men are in jail this morning, including an up-and-coming Florida rapper. Both men are charged in a double murder. Police are saying the two staged a crime scene to make it look like a drive-by shooting.
On February 12, 2019, news broke that Jamal Maurice Demons, better known as YNW Melly, had been arrested in connection with the deaths of 2 of his closest friends, Anthony Williams, aka YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas, aka YNW Juvie. The 2 victims, aged 21 and 19, were murdered on October 21, 2018. At first, it was widely believed to be a drive-by shooting. One of the victims' friends, YNW Bortland, was seen driving the pair to the hospital in a Jeep Compass. But after months of investigation, the police came to believe that Melly was responsible for the killings, and that Bortland helped him cover up the crime. Both men were arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. In a police statement, authorities said, Jamal Demons, aka YNW Melly, and Cortland Henry have been arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr., were killed on October 26, 2018. The investigation, supported by forensic evidence, concluded that Demons shot and killed Williams and Thomas Jr., and that Demons and Henry staged the crime scene to resemble a drive-by shooting. Melly was quick to update his fans on Instagram, announcing he would turn himself in, while denying all allegations against himself and YNW Bortland. In a now-deleted post, Melly wrote, "To all my fans and supporters, no, I did not get locked up in Washington, but I am turning myself in today. I want you guys to know I love you and appreciate every single one of y'all. A couple months ago, I lost my 2 brothers by violence, and now the system wants to find justice. Unfortunately, A lot of rumors and lies are being said, but no worries. God is with me and my brother YNW Bortland, and we want you all to remember, it's a YNW family. I love you, YNW Sack Chaser and YNW Juvie. State of Florida announced it would seek capital punishment against Melly, as prosecutors believe they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he murdered his two friends. According to court documents, the murder was described as especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, and committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner. It's important to note that Florida is one of the 30 states where capital punishment is legal. According to police statements, YNW Bortland told officers that he and the two victims had just finished a late-night studio session when a car pulled up on his driver's side and opened fire. While pulling off the freeway, he then drove to an emergency room asking for help for his two friends, claiming they had been shot in a drive-by shooting. But initial investigations that led to the arrest of Melly and Bortland revealed shocking new information. Forensic evidence showed that neither victim was shot from outside the car, but rather from inside, disproving the drive-by account. Investigators confirmed there were 8 bullet holes along the right side of the vehicle, where Sack Chaser and Juvie had been sitting that night. They also found a shell casing inside the car, along with 8 matching shell casings in a different location where they believe Melly and Bortland shot the vehicle to stage the drive-by. Officials reported that the initial shot was likely fired from inside the car on the left rear passenger side. A review of CCTV footage showed the group leaving. The CCTV footage from the studio that night helped investigators determine that Melly had been sitting in the left rear passenger seat of the car. Further evidence from the autopsy showed that both victims' head wounds were inflicted from a left-to-right direction. This directly contradicted Bortland's statements and did not support the claim of a drive-by shooting occurring from the right side of the vehicle. Additionally, police alleged that Melly and Bortland drove around with the bodies of the two victims in the car for some time before finally heading to the hospital. Interestingly, Bortland later told police that Melly was indeed in the same car with them initially, but eventually got into a different vehicle. Authorities stated they could prove that Melly murdered his friends for financial gain. After the arrest, Melly's lawyers were quick to defend him, saying, "We disagree with the assertions made in the notice and look forward to disproving the charges." They insisted on Melly's innocence, arguing there was no murder weapon found, no witnesses, no DNA evidence, and no clear motive. Hours after the news of Melly's arrest broke, thousands of netizens quickly connected the arrest to his breakout 2017 hit, Murder on My Mind. That song, released 18 months before Sack Chaser and Juvie were killed, combines themes of punishing loneliness with vivid, brutal murder fantasies. Interestingly, the song was released while Melly was still in prison serving a 1-year sentence after a shootout near his high school in Vero Beach, Florida. Shortly after his release in 2017, he was sent back to jail for violating probation. According to Melly, prosecutors targeted him on minor infractions, but his return to jail was largely influenced by the state attorney reading the second verse of Murder on My Mind in court. His lawyers believe that if the song was used against him before on minor charges, then it will likely be used against him again in his double homicide trial. In court documents, the defense sought to prevent the song from being introduced as evidence in the trial. Melly's lawyers also requested bail, arguing he had no intention of fleeing. They pointed out that all his friends and family lived in Florida, giving him no reason to run. They told the court, defendant poses no flight risk as he knew what charges were pending against him and still chose to self-surrender. If he wanted to run, he would have done so when there was a misidentification of another individual arrested in Washington, D.C. Despite these arguments, the court denied Melly's bond. He remained in jail for 4 years while awaiting trial. But Melly's legal troubles didn't stop there. Just weeks after being arrested on the double murder charge, he was also named a suspect in the shooting death of Deputy Gary Chambliss. According to a witness, Melly and Bortland were standing with a group of men who threw a bottle at a passing car. The car's occupant fired a weapon at the group, and one of the rappers allegedly returned fire. Deputy Chambliss, standing about 170 yards away, was tragically hit by a stray bullet.